Hi guys, Artie here, and I'll finally be reviewing Dan vs. New Mexico, the first episode, just like I promised. It originally premiered on the now-defunct network, The Hub, on January 1st, 2011, alongside the second episode, The Wolfman. The episode's plot is about Dan's car getting mysteriously vandalized by materials originating from New Mexico, so Dan, Chris, and Elise take a trip to said state to find its weakness and exact revenge. Interestingly enough, this is one of the few times Elise sides with Dan, mainly due to her also having a grudge against New Mexico because of a traumatic childhood event, that being roadrunners eating her cotton candy. The episode opens up with Dan waking up, getting hurt by objects loosely related to New Mexico like a burrito and an armadillo, and then he discovers his car window was smashed with an adobe brick and comes to the conclusion that New Mexico broke it. Dan enlists the help of his best friend Chris to seek any information on how to hurt New Mexico and find its weakness, but they get thrown out of a library. After a quick lunch break, they head to a different library and find potential help, but they have to do a favor for the librarian first. He wants them to take out a man that is dating his wife, but the job is indirectly taken care of when the guy is hit by a bus. After that, they are actually able to gather some crucial information, such as the hot air balloon festival. They return back, prepare for the trip, and Elise comes despite Dan's disapproval, and they finally head to New Mexico. We then see Elise's motive for coming along for Dan's revenge mission. They stop at a gas station in Arizona, and moments later, Elise asks to get dropped off in the middle of the desert by Roswell where she sneaks into a military base. Back with Chris and Dan, Chris gets distracted while driving and hits a roadrunner. I love the Looney Tunes reference they threw in here. Dan believes he killed the actual roadrunner and claims he killed a celebrity.
How could you even think that? He doesn't look remotely like him at all!
They use a lot of makeup on TV.
Soon after, Dan spots and hijacks a semi-truck carrying hydrogen and uses it to fill the hot air balloons. After filling them up, he attempts to throw a lighter out of the truck window at the balloons and cause them to explode, but the window is shut. They bail out of the truck as it crashes into the balloons and causes a huge explosion, putting an end to the cultists' madness. Meanwhile, Elise stealthily sneaks through the ingeniously parodied top-secret government base Area 52 and steals an alien spacecraft. Elise saves, or should I say abducts, Dan and Chris from the irate cultists attacking them at the last second, and the two fly around the aircraft while Chris is knocked out cold, destroying Hint of Fate until Dan mistakenly crashes it.
And that one! Oh, get that one in the stupid hat!
I have that same hat.
Seriously? It's so gauche.
The episode ends the following morning with the three driving back home from the successful mission, and Dan and Elise tell Chris that they destroyed the balloons and nothing else happened, with him buying the response. It's interesting to note that this time around, Chris is actually willing to tag along with Dan in his revenge scheme, when in most episodes he is either forced to come, reluctantly joins him, or is begrudgingly dragged along. Although this could just be early installment weirdness, like how Dan acts more childish in Season 1. Dan's outlandish and silly claims about very abstract concepts wronging him is hilarious and just works so well, especially when it always turns out he is right. The conclusions and parallels he draws always turns out to be true. In any other scenario, he would just be brushed off as insane until Chris and Elise find out the truth. Even though the pacing was slow at times, this is an excellent episode. It was a neat way to introduce the main three characters without going into much detail or having some over-the-top backstory before actually getting to the show itself. There were a few solid jokes and gags like Dan calling Elise desert people and Dan also adding Arizona to his revenge list, but not as developed as later episodes. The plot, as well as a few lines, mainly carries the episode here because of the slower pacing, which isn't an entirely bad thing. Dan vs. New Mexico also shows us the extent of Dan's anger, rationale, and dedication as well, which plays an important role throughout the series. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, notify, and check out other videos on the channel. You may like them. Does this episode work as an introduction to the series, or does the sister episode Dan vs. the Wolfman fare better? Let me know in the comments.